Hey guys, this is Sean here vlogging again. I'm really excited to start the new year off. But Happy New Year, everybody! With going into a show that has probably affected me more than almost any other show. And it's weird to say that because I've done a lot of really kind of soul-shattering shows with Les Mis, Sweeney Todd, even shows like The Heiress. But this musical is so much more for me that I'm going into. The musical is American Idiot. Yes, based off the Green Day album, if you are unaware of musical theater. Which, if you're following this blog, if you're unaware of musical theater, why are you here? But welcome, welcome, welcome. Anyways, so American Idiot came out, I want to say 2005, question mark? Not the musical, but the Green Day album. And I immediately fell in love with it. Green Day was a band that I'd obviously been aware of. My dad used to be a huge grunge rock listener, so he would listen to all sorts of just, you know, what some people might consider mainstream bands now, but back in their day were not at all. You're talking like Nirvana, and obviously Green Day, Dead Kennedys, Ramones, you know, a lot of punk rock, grunge rock crossover there, Anthrax before they were big. So I grew up listening to Green Day along with all those other bands. So I immediately fell in love with the album because it reminded me of all those earlier albums, late 80s, early 90s, back into the 70s. It had that sound, it had that rage, it had that lyrical know-how that I think makes Green Day probably one of the greatest bands of all time, if not makes Billy Joe Armstrong one of the greatest lyricists of all time. He's got such a command of the English language that I think a lot of people don't. But anyways, so a little background for people who have only known me for a short time. In 2005, I was fairly conservative, fairly libertarian. I was one of those ridiculous people who said, well, I'm socially liberal, but I'm fiscally conservative. I've now changed my tune for anybody who knows me. I voted for John McCain and Sarah Palin. I supported Bush. And I think, you know, I was one of those gay guys who was like, yeah, no, civil unions are totally cool, whatever. But that's because I didn't have all the knowledge that I have now. So 2005 comes. I'm in a new school. I transferred in the middle of my sophomore year of high school. And I'm used to transferring schools. I went to 5 different elementary schools. I went to 1 middle school. I went to 2 high schools. But it's really, no matter how many times you transfer a school, nothing will ever make it easier. So I'm in the middle of this new year at this new school with new people. I came out of the middle of nowhere, Virginia, really about 30 minutes from UVA and Monticello. Just to kind of give you an idea, just on the outskirts of Charlottesville, Virginia. And this album comes out. And I like Green Day, so I go buy it. Because I like Green Day. And I listen to it, and I'm just like, yeah, this music's rocking, this is awesome. You know, and I rock out to it because I'm, you know, a little 16-year-old. Just rocking out to rock out. I start learning it. Learning the lyrics, singing along with it. And I start analyzing it. I mean, the lyrics are so visceral. I think it's Holiday, you know. Zig Heil to the President Gas Man, bombs away is your punishment. Pulverize the Eiffel Towers who criticize your government. that's probably one of my favorite lines, stanzas, lyrics, whatever you want to call it, from the entire album, because it describes right after 9/11 and into 2003 and 2004 and 2005, everything that our government was doing that was just terrible. Absolutely terrible. And we now know about now. I mean, between the NSA and waterboarding and everything that goes on down in Guantanamo Bay, our government has done some terrible, terrible things in the interest of safety. So I started listening to this, and I want to say it was about 2006, 2007. I'm starting to kind of break the bonds of conservatism and libertarianism. Not enough to not vote for John McCain, because I was still so invested in the idea of safety first and kill them all. And I thought John McCain was the way to go. And I'm still listening to this album. This album is still playing often. I'm listening to it way up there in my rotation. And I started listening to Linkin Park at the same time, which I know some people might think Linkin Park to Green Day, how does that work out? But their messages are incredibly similar. So we get to the 2008 election. I swear all of this has a point. We get to the 2008 election, and it's the first election that I can vote in ever. And I cast my vote for John McCain and Sarah Palin. And I have never been more conflicted about a vote than that vote. I bought hardcore. I was listening hardcore into the conservative message. I was listening to here in St. Louis we have 97.1 FM Talk. It's a Fox News affiliate. Used to play Rush Limbaugh and Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck. The Drudge Report, Breitbart, all of these very, high up there conservative talkers. And I bought into their message so deep, but I was still conflicted about voting for John McCain, and I didn't know why. I shouldn't have felt conflicted. I bought so heavily into this idea of the conservative libertarian movement. So I started having to think to myself, why am I feeling conflicted? And through it all, I'm still listening to Linkin Park, and I'm listening to Green Day, on repeat over and over and over and over again. I ask myself, why? And I start paying more attention to the politics. And I start looking more. I start listening more. I start reading more. I start comparing more. And I realized the reason I felt conflicted is because I was never getting the full story. Never getting the full story. I was hearing these people yell and argue and prop each other up and give each other pats on the backs on conservative talk media. But they never really said anything. They repeated, every single one of them repeated these same points all the time. All the time. And I think to myself, like, oh, how does that make for good discourse? How does that make for good discussion? How can we move forward when everything that I'm taught in school by all sorts of people everywhere, English class, history class, science class, music, fucking drama, you can't be around people who only think the same way as you. You can't have a discussion and only ever talk to people who think the same way you think. That's not how it works at all. You've gotta be around. You don't even have to be around. You have to hear different sides of the story. You have to understand different sides of the story. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, American Idiot was the first breaking of the bonds that I had. It made me think more, and it brought me to this understanding where I'm at now in 2015 or 2016, excuse me. Whew. Where, you know, hashtag feel the burn. I'm voting for Bernie Sanders in the primary, and, you know, I'm pretty sure he's going to win the nomination. So I'm walking into this musical knowing this album already fairly intimately, and hoping to know the album and the lyrics, and know the show even more intimately. I don't think I've ever walked into a show where I know the music so well that I'm going to have to sit and work and break what I know in order to relearn what I know. So I'm super excited for the opportunity. Thank you, Scott Miller, for casting me. And I just read his blog, which I will include a link below the video to his first blog about American Idiot. It's a fantastic discussion that takes, like, the hero's journey, if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell, and breaks and kind of analyzes the show based on that. So I highly suggest it. But I'm going to continue kind of blog or vlog, whatever I feel like doing at the time. I feel like I speak better when I feel like my ideas are better when I talk them out versus writing them, but, you know, that's me personally. So yeah, look forward to the next couple of blogs. I'm going to try making a goal of putting it out there once a week. Don't know if that'll actually happen. We'll see. Might have some guests on the blog because I'm carpooling with people. So, but yeah, I'm super excited about this show. I think more than any other show that I've ever been in. It is representative of 10 years of my life, from the time that it came out to now, that have probably been the most dynamic years of my life. Beyond everything. I mean, obviously for everybody, puberty is pretty damn dynamic, but in terms of political thought, in terms of understanding, in terms of who I want to be as a person, I think this musical has been far more influential than I even really know. So that's it for today, guys. Bye.